So your last lesson, we talked about landforms and physical features in the USA. But today we're going to talk about how the USA is also broken up into different regions. So if you're on PlanBook, you're going to click here to get to this assignment on Teams. When you click it, it'll take you here to your assignment. And as you can see, it says to watch the video lesson. And then you're going to fill out the regions of the USA facts using this form here. And then you're also going to label US regions on a map here, very similar to how you filled out the US landforms on the map. So when you click this form, it brings you up to this form here. So we're going to talk about 7 different regions in the US today. So for each of these, as you say, it says, as you see, tell 3 facts about each region listed. So you're going to watch the video on my PlanBook for the information. So this video will tell you information about each of these regions. So as you're listening and following along, you can fill in your 3 facts here. One simple way would just to put like a number 1, type your information, and number 2, type your information, and number 3, type your information. So you're going to do that for each region. In addition, you're also going to be filling out that map. And when you click that, it'll pull up this. And again, remember, you click Edit Presentation, Edit in Browser. And then you'll see that I have drawn in the lines for the boundaries of each region. So this text box goes with this region. This text box goes with this region. And this text box goes with this region. This one with this with this little region right here. This one goes with this region, and then this text box here goes with this region. So as I'm showing you on this video, you'll be filling in, you'll just click in the text box, fill in what the name of the region is, and you'll do that for each of the 7 regions. So in class, we're going to be looking at what's called a Studies Weekly. Kind of looks like a newspaper. We read through it as a class. So I'm going to read through this for you. You'll follow along, see what we're talking about. But as you can see on this picture, you can see the same regions that I drew on the map that you will be filling out. And these are the different regions that we're going to be talking about. So we'll start here reading, and you can follow along. If you traveled across America from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean, what landforms would you see along the way? Mountains, plains, plateaus, lakes, forests. You would see all of these and more. Our country has a wide variety of physical features that make it a beautiful and interesting place to live. This week, or this lesson, we will learn more about these features. The United States can be divided into 7 major areas, or regions. Each region has a unique physical feature. So each region has different physical features that make up that area. Each region also has its own climate, which is weather over a long period of time. So as we look, we're going to see what the different climate is for each of these regions. Each has other characteristics that set it apart from the other regions too. Here's a list of America's 7 regions. See if you can find them on the map, and then keep reading to learn about each one. So we're going to look closer at the Pacific Coastal Plain, the Western Plateau, the Rocky Mountains, the Interior Plains, the Atlantic Coastal Plain, the Appalachian region, and the Ozark Highlands. So we're going to go now to page 2. So this is where it describes what's in each of these regions. And the next page has a picture pointing where each region is. So we'll just take a moment and we'll look at this map so you can kind of see what we'll be reading about. So this first region, the Pacific Coastal Plain, I'm going to scroll back so you can see the picture there. So this is kind of what that area looks like. This is where the redwoods are, the sequoias in California. If we're looking at, the northwest part of that, you're also going to see trees like that. You're going to see Washington and Oregon look similar to this. You also have Crater Lake in Oregon. So you can see that they all look very similar. The physical features are very similar in this region. Now we're going to take a look at region 2 here. So we see this picture. That's the Grand Canyon in Arizona. We have Arches National Park in Utah. Then we also have this picture here, which is the Mesa Verde National Park, Colorado. So again, you can see here that the landscape, the way that the Earth looks, is very similar in this region. It all looks very similar. And then if we're looking at the Rocky Mountain region, you're going to be seeing, the mountains. This one's kind of on the edge there, so you can kind of see how it's a little bit of that. But you're going to see a lot of the mountain views. Then if you're looking at the interior plains here, you can see you're going to see lots of wildlife and lakes. It looks very similar to the landscape that we have because that's where we're located, in the interior plains. Then looking at the Atlantic coastal plain, you're going to see a lot of the Everglades. You've got some of the kind of the ocean coastline and swamp area. And then when we take a look into the Appalachian, that's where you get into the Smoky Mountains, kind of more the rolling mountains rather than the jagged mountains of the Rockies. So this landscape is all going to look very similar to each other. And then finally, this is the Ozark Highland. So that's where we get kind of into the foothills in Missouri and kind of that area that's got a little bit of the Rocky mountainous area, but not quite like the Rocky Mountains or the Appalachian. So that kind of gives you a visual of what we're going to be talking about on the page 2. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Pacific Coastal Plains. So if you're filling out your map right here, we're going to be talking about this area here. This is our Pacific Coastal Plains. So this is where you would be typing in Pacific Coastal Plains. So this region lies along the Pacific coastline from Alaska to Mexico. One physical feature of this region is that it has mountains bordering the ocean. There are more potentially active volcanoes in this region than any other region in the lower 48, meaning the 48 states that are connected to each other. So these are all the 48. This is what they call the lower 48. So out of all these states, this Pacific coastline has more potentially active volcanoes. I mean, they're not active now, but they have a potential. The two main mountain ranges are the Cascade Mountains in the north and the Sierra Nevada Mountains in the south. The western valleys have fertile and rich land. Many high-quality fruits are grown here. Giant redwoods are an interesting feature in Northern California mountains. The San Andreas Fault, another feature of this region, sometimes causes earthquakes. So you can get 3 facts from here to put onto your form about the Pacific Coastal Plains. The next region we have is the Western Plateau. So if we look here on our map, we can see again, this area here is the Western Plateau. So if you're filling in the text box on your map, you're going to be looking here and filling in this text box, the Western Plateau. East of the Pacific Coastal Plains and west of the Rocky Mountains lies the Western Plateau, or the Great Basin. This region stretches from Washington State to Mexico. The Western Plateau includes mountains, deserts, and the Grand Canyon. Many places in this region are very dry, so not many crops grow there. In the north, farms are able to produce good crops through irrigation. Other areas have forested mountains, or mountains with forests on them, fertile farmlands, and orchards. One famous part of this region is called the Colorado Plateau. Here you can see some of the world's most unusual and beautiful landforms. So the Western Plateau has a big variety of physical features and landforms in that area. So you'll be able to get your 3 facts about the Western Plateau from this paragraph that I just read. And reminder, you're going to put those 3 facts on that form. Now the Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountain Range is the longest mountain range in North America. It begins in Canada and extends through central New Mexico. Many of the peaks are more than 12,000 feet high. Mount Elbert in Colorado is the tallest peak in the range at 14,433 feet. Crossing the Rockies was a major problem for settlers moving west in the 1800s. An imaginary line called the Continental Divide passes through the Rockies. On the west side of the line, rivers and streams flowed down toward the Pacific Ocean. On the east side of the line, rivers and streams flowed down towards the Atlantic Ocean. So if we're looking here, the Rocky Mountains are here. So all the rivers on this side of the Rocky Mountains flow towards the Pacific Ocean. And all the rivers on this side of the Rocky Mountains flow towards the Atlantic Ocean or to the Gulf, which connects to the Atlantic Ocean. The lower parts of the Rocky Mountains are covered with trees. However, in the upper parts of the Rockies, only plants like grasses, mosses, and lichens can grow. So again, pull out 3 facts from that paragraph, stick it into that form about the Rocky Mountains, and on your map, you're going to be filling in that text box. Number 4, the interior plains. So if we're looking, we have the interior plains is this area here. The interior plains is the largest region in the United States, and it is located in the center of the country. The western part of this region has good grasslands for grazing cattle and rich soil for farming. Other parts of the region have oil and coal deposits. Today, the Mississippi River flows through the region, but it may surprise you to know that scientists think this area was once a large sea. So again, you're going to pull out 3 facts from that paragraph and type it into your form, and then you'll need to fill in the text box on your map of where the interior plains is. Now we're moving on to the Atlantic Coastal Plains. So the Atlantic Coastal Plains is number 5 here, all along the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf, and we're looking at these states there. And to point out, so this river is the Mississippi River, and it flows all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. So back to the Atlantic Coastal Plains. This region extends from New England along the Atlantic coastline and the Appalachian foothills down through Florida to the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf area has farms and grasslands. It also has large oil and natural gas deposits. The southern states also have good farmland. Farmers grow tobacco, peanuts, cotton, and many other products. So pull out 3 facts about the Atlantic Coastal Plains, put it into your form, and then don't forget to label in the text box on your map. And then number 6, the Appalachian region. So you're going to be looking here at this region here. This is number 6, Appalachian region. This region begins in Maine, which is this state here, and extends down into Alabama. Although the Appalachian Mountains are not as rugged or rocky and rough as the Rockies, transportation through the Appalachians can still be difficult. Fortunately, large rivers cutting through the mountains have made some good places for people to build railroads and highways. Up in the mountains, minerals and coal are produced. In the valleys, farming is a major activity. Because forests cover these mountains, the lumber industry is a big part of the economy in this region. So pull out 3 facts from this region and put it onto your form. And then find the text box for the Appalachian region on your map and label that. And finally, we're looking at the Ozark Highlands. The Ozark Highlands are not very high at all. This area, including Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, is best described as a plateau. The land is not good for farming, but there are many forests filled with cedar, oak, hickory, and pine trees. Underground caverns are an interesting feature of this region. You will also find many man-made water reservoirs or lakes in this area. So you have the Ozark Highlands. You're going to pull out 3 facts, put that on your form, and then make sure you also find this area on your map and label the text box. So once you get all 7 of these filled in with 3 facts, you're going to hit submit. And once you get all of your text boxes filled and labeled, you'll just click close, and then you click turn it in. Again, if you have any questions about the regions or about how to complete the work, make sure you send me a chat here on Teams, send me an email, or message me and remind.